Hi and welcome to my channel. I don't mind admitting that I'm quite nervous about street photography. I've done many types of photography in my time, from photographing hundreds of guests at big society weddings through to photographing quite famous actors, and I have not been particularly nervous. But street photography does give me the heebie-jeebies, and I think it may do many of you as well. So I've determined to get into street photography a bit more, and I'm going to do a short series on just that. Let's get into it. I absolutely know why I have a problem with pointing my lens at absolute strangers in the street. That's largely because I have always been, in inverted commas, the photographer within a given situation. As a professional, I actually started off shooting sports and then moved into shooting theatre and events and weddings. So people have always seen me as the photographer in attendance. So my being there has kind of been justified. That can't be said when you do street photography. It's something completely different. You are, if you like, intruding into people's daily lives with your lens, uninvited. That is the raw, direct, blunt truth of what you're doing. You are the invasive lens, you're the observing lens. That I find quite difficult, and I understand that it can be done with sensitivity, and that's what I want to try and develop. I have never had this technique. I have never tried this technique particularly, or the set of techniques, because there's obviously more than one. And let's face it, one of the photographers who impressed me most and influenced me most from a very early age was Henri Cartier-Bresson. And of course he exists within the realm of street photography. So to go on this journey and take you along with me, what am I going to use camera-wise? Well, there are some classics, and I have some of those, or I'm lucky to have some of those within my collection of cameras, or cameras that are particularly close to the classics. But I actually thought I'd start with something that was a little off the wall. I was intending to do this entire weekend of shooting out on the street, but nature has decided to tip down with rain, so I actually managed to get a couple of hours in yesterday and develop the results of that. So that's what you're going to be seeing, and I'm going to be trying to do the rest of it over the next couple of weeks. However, the first camera that I picked was the Olympus XA. Now, this isn't a possibly immediate choice for many street shooters. Tiny 35mm compact rangefinder, but it is very small and it is very unobtrusive. I mean, it literally will bury in your hands, and when it's up to your eye, it's really small and really quick to use. It has marks for hyperfocal, zone focusing, and I thought I'd take this out and give it a try. Oh, I picked the south bank of the River Thames for a couple of reasons. One, because I thought, well, it's going to be quite crowded on a Friday afternoon, and it's much easier to disappear as a photographer in a crowd. And the other one is it's a popular destination for tourists, so there are quite a few people with cameras there anyway. So again, more chance of blending in. As it happened, I picked a very bleak and windy Friday afternoon, and there were a lot less people than I imagined there. So a lot of the time I found myself being isolated in big pockets of nobody, and standing out like a sore thumb, which made me feel very nervous indeed. Also, there weren't any other people there with cameras. I think most of the photographers had decided to make the best of a bad job and go home, because there was very little light, and it was brewing up great big black clouds, and in fact later turned into an enormous thunderstorm. But I persisted and I carried on, and from my very first warm-up shot that you'll see, I produced probably 8 or 9 shots out of 36 that to a degree pleased me. Let's go through them. I have to say, the image of the old guy in the pouring rain playing a drum solo, even though unfortunately the image is being affected by blur, camera shake, I absolutely love. And that brings me to the chief problem with using the Olympus XA. It simply is that at speeds that with other cameras you would normally be able to handhold comfortably, the Olympus is a bit of a tricky proposition. You have to really concentrate on holding it steady because it is so very light. Now, I've not found this a problem before because I've used this as a notebook camera where I have usually plenty of time to concentrate on taking the photo. But when you're trying to use this quickly in a turn shoot kind of way, that's when camera shake inevitably seems to creep in. In fact, I was very pleased that I managed to zone focus pretty much perfectly all the way through. No big problem on a 35mm lens like this. But I think one of the chief limiting factors of the XA is its weight. The other contenders for street shooting that I should be taking out and putting to the test will be my usual very lovely old 1938 Leica 3B, and this one is fitted with the new to me Voigtlander 35mm color scope, which I've just bought, and I'm going to be taking that out. I've got a cheap 35mm plastic finder on there, which is going to do the job just fine. I'm going to take that out and I'm going to see whether the extra bit of mass in the Leica will make a difference in getting those handheld shots just that bit sharper. The last camera that I shall be taking out onto the streets to see whether it can help me in my quest will be this lovely little Zorky 1, holding up the end for former Soviet cameras. This solid little Leica 2 copy I'll take out with a 50mm lens and see whether the 50mm suits me better than the 35. All interesting stuff to explore. And this one cost me around the same as the Olympus XA, so it's a good starting camera for people wanting to go out and shoot film in the streets. It's this one cost me around £70, so really not super expensive. So as soon as the light returns and the rain stops, I shall be out there again, getting my repeats in, practicing out on the street and seeing if I can find some techniques that will help me and yourselves get into street photography without the nervousness. Okay, if you've enjoyed this, perhaps you'll hit the like button. And if you really enjoyed it, perhaps you'll think about subscribing, because that, as usual, puts a great big cheesy grin on my face. You can always support me further by signing up to my Patreon page, and I will put a link in the description. And if you want to, you can buy me a coffee, because I consume gallons of it whilst I'm scanning and getting pictures ready to put up on this channel. Anyway, until I see you again, take care of yourselves and keep taking pictures.